Right, well, we're live with our first ever Good for the Game betting preview coming to you on YouTube. We're trying something new. We've had podcasts in the past. We've done quite a couple of different things. We've, of course, got our written previews. So we thought, let's go live on YouTube. Let's hook up with guests and let's discuss our favorite topic, and that, of course, is betting. Well, we got the big Super Rugby Final coming up this weekend. It's the Crusaders against the Lions in Christchurch. Well, we haven't had such a one-sided betting heat for quite a while, at least if the bookmakers are to be believed. And he had to analyze the game with me. Well, he's a regular post on the Good for the Game forum under the name Critic, and he also writes a weekly blog. And it's hi to you, Hein Diemont. Welcome to the first ever show.
How's it, Brent? Nice being here. I know you've been wanting to do this for a long time, so it's a privilege getting this going with you.
It certainly is. I mean, I must say, you probably couldn't have got two worse guys from a technology point of view to try and put this all together. I actually had intentions of getting this going for the start of Super Rugby, and in the end, I've made it for the very last match. But I suppose rather late than never. And certainly does look like quite a nice technology that we can use. We can hook up with guys like Oracle, who's obviously got his own YouTube channel. I think he's got some fairly firm views on this weekend's game as well. And a lot of the other punters out there keen to join us, and it offers quite a lot of opportunity. But let's start off with the final itself, because early markets here, Hein, 15.5 points in favor of the Crusaders. I tweeted, as did the likes of Henrik on the weekend. In fact, during the Crusaders game, and I couldn't see anything less than 20 points. So I climbed into the 15.5, and I see the market seems to have settled around 17.5 points.
Yes, I remember you were quite bullish when things got underway, or the previous game actually finished. You were quite bullish on that number. And it came out pretty close to what you thought, or actually a little bit under. But yeah, I missed the 15.5. I think the 15.5 would have been that's a pretty solid punt. I mean, it's tough seeing the Lions staying within that. Yeah, I've actually got a few thoughts on that. I think the Lions have started slowly, and if they're going to start slowly again, then they're going to be in for a heap of trouble there. And then 15.5 isn't going to be nearly enough.
Yeah, certainly in both their home games. I mean, the Jaguares, they were sort of down early to a couple of penalties, and then 14-0 down, I think it was, to the Waratahs. So, yeah, they certainly can't afford to start like that. The problem being, of course, the Crusaders' defense. It's going to be very hard to get back into it. But I think the problem that the Lions are going to have here, Hein, is actually scoring points. And one of the betting markets I'm looking forward to seeing is the Lions' points. Going to be very interested to see what's quoted there. I'm expecting the quote to be around about 18.5 points. And if so, I'll probably be an unders player.
Yes, I think the big thing is, you know what you're going to expect from the Lions. They're not going to change for the final game. It's going to be all-out attack from them, and they've always gone with the attitude of they'll just score more tries than the opponents, and that's going to be really tough against a very good Crusaders side. They're very good all around. You know, that's the big thing about them for me. They've got a good solid pack of forwards, and they can play some great attacking rugby. And then defensively, I think the big thing about them is discipline on attack, discipline on defense. They've got both. And as you say, you know, I don't see the Lions scoring 4 tries, and they're going to need to score 4 tries because their defense is definitely going to allow in 4 tries if the conditions are decent.
Yeah, well, I was having a look at conditions. Of course, especially for a spread punter like myself, conditions are absolutely crucial. And it looks like there could be a little bit of rain around Christchurch, but overall not a bad day. But irrespective of that, Christchurch at night, there's always a lot of dew around. I see humidity levels in the high 80s, early 90s. So it's going to be very, very different from what the Lions are used to. And I think, although some say that conditions may be a leveler, I think it's going to play into the Crusaders' hands. I think the Lions are going to score. I think the Lions are going to struggle a little bit like they did in 2016 when they played against the Hurricanes in a very wet Wellington and went down by 17 points.
Exactly, Brent. I think you hit the nail on the head there. People often say that it's an equalizer, but I actually think the team with better skills, it gets enhanced in tough conditions. So, you know, handling is going to be difficult. The Lions, as I say, to me, the big thing about the Lions is they don't have a plan B. They've got one option, and that's all-out attack, and they're going to do it again. Yes, they've got a great pack of forwards, which they do it behind, but they're still going to try and throw the ball around. And the big thing against the Crusaders is when you make mistakes doing that, then they punish you. And in tough conditions, you're going to make more mistakes, and they're going to punish you more harshly.
I guess if the Lions are to have a chance, it's going to have to come up front. They do have a good pack. I must say, they scrummed very well last week, as did the Crusaders against the Hurricanes. And, I mean, guys like Kwagga Smith and Malcolm Marx, I think, has scored something like 8 tries or 11 tries this season or something ridiculous for a hooker. So that's really where the Lions are going to have to base their game around. But for me, the forward battle should be fairly even, and it's really out wide where I give the Crusaders quite a big edge.
Yes, exactly. I mean, everyone knows that's Red Mark column that I'm a big Kwagga Smith fan. So he's going to be present and he's going to feature heavily, and especially what happened in the last final, he's going to be out to prove something. So I'm expecting a big game from him. I actually think he contributed in no small way this past weekend. He got them back on track with his efforts. So he's going to be huge. And Malcolm Marx the same. I think he's probably one of the best rugby players in the world at the moment. So no, they are going to be huge. And I think that's probably what they're going to try and do. They're almost going to try and disrupt. Actually, in the quarterfinal, it was the Sharks, got under the Crusaders' skin there for 20, 30 minutes and they didn't enjoy it as much. So obviously that's the only way I see it going for the Lions. The only option they have is to really get stuck in there. I mean, they've got Brent back this weekend, which is going to be crucial. I mean, he's got to get stuck in there, and they've really got to get physical and irritate the Crusaders. Don't give them clean ball, don't get them good ball, and frustrate them. And the big thing, as you said as well, is they need to get ahead on the scoreboard. If the Crusaders can get ahead and dictate terms, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, because the thing about the final, I mean, once a team is ahead, they're happy to carry on building. They're not worried about bonus points. And by the same token, the team that's chasing, once they get a certain amount behind, they're no longer interested in penalties. They really have to chase a game. And it does bring me to one of the punters, Hendrik, who posted on our hashtag chat betting, and he was asking what we thought about the Crusaders to win to 0 at 25-1. So, Hein, I mean, the first thing, I have looked around, there is bigger prices available. You can get as big as 66-1. And at that sort of price, I wouldn't mind a nibble, because if the Lions, for example, had to start slowly and go 14-0 down, they may already not kick penalties when they're on offer. And you could well see the Crusaders keeping them triless.
Yes, and especially if conditions are a bit tough, then, there are going to be less tries. And then that's a runner. Actually, I didn't want to comment. I thought we'd comment tonight. Is just before we spoke last night, I actually saw that market almost there at the bottom of the WSB page, and it caught my eye. And I thought, gee, at 66-1, especially I heard something about rain being around. I thought that was a great run or a great outside tip. So definitely at that price, I mean, you can't get hurt, and you might as well have a go.
And just to let you know, if you do think the Lions may not score a try and you prefer a more conservative option, you can get 15-2 that there's no away try scorer. So in other words, that no Lions player scores a try. Let's go on to the other comment that we got under the hashtag chat betting. And that was from also one of our forum posters, Pierbal. I think he's based overseas. And what he was asking me, Hein, was about the Crusaders shirt numbers. Obviously a little bit early to see the quotes, but he's saying that when the Crusaders score tries, it tends to be backline players. And he was suggesting perhaps a buy of shirts. And I must say, I had a look at it. While I wouldn't discourage you from buying shirt numbers, which is a spread bet and extremely volatile, looking at past finals, they do tend to be affairs of maybe 4 or 5 tries in total. And if the Crusaders get 17 points ahead and they get a penalty under the post, they're going to take the 3 points. I'd personally be a bit wary of tries in this game.
Yes, I think you've got it spot on, Brent, especially the Crusaders we saw last weekend. They didn't really mind about going for tries when they got a lead. They just steadily built it. Muanga is very good off the kicking tee, so they'll just try and extend their lead that way. So that is the problem with that. The one I often look at is it's almost like the spread handicap or the spread margin, where the one exceeding the other one. So I'd say that the Crusaders would score, their shirt numbers would be this much more than the Lions shirt numbers. Because again, I think, supremacy, yes, that's the one. So I think, the Crusaders might not score as many, but I don't think the Lions are going to score a lot. And often, you mentioned it as well, Marx and Kwagga might be the ones scoring the tries. And if they do, low numbers, and the Crusaders, for their part, you could see Bridge and are really getting in there, which are higher numbers. So if you are going to go that way, I'd probably look at something like that rather.
Yeah, that's I've been burnt on the Lions in the past, buying their shirt numbers, having 5 tries in the first half and the spread sitting at about 25. So, and on that note, just having a look at marks, you can get 5-2 marks to score a try at any time. I think that's going to be a popular pick, and you can get as big as 22-1. I saw at WSB that Mark scores the first try. And let's face it, I was watching some highlights of the Lions early on TV. If they're going to score tries in those sort of conditions, I think it's going to be rolling ball time, and there's only one man who parks at the back of the bus.
Definitely. I mean, that's a great tactic for them, and it's been very profitable. So they could go that way, and you've almost got the backup where Marks is so busy and all around the park that'll pop up other places as well. So you get a double value there. I love taking him as a first try scorer. It's always a good one. And then of course I've got my personal favorite, Marnus Skuman to score the last one. So that energetic, bouncy ball type of player who just comes on there and he never say die attitude, and he's actually 40-1 to score the last try. And again, the game could be well sealed, 20 odd points up the Crusaders last few minutes, and he's the only one who's still giving 110%. And I see those blonde locks going over there for one there at 40-1. That's a nice little nibble for me.
Well, I just hope minus 15.5 that the Crusaders are leading by at least 23 points when that final try gets scored. But I had a similar logic. I was looking at Diemont, the winger. He's 25-1 to score the last try. So it's not a bad bet to take. I must say, Skuman, he's a guy I've always considered a walking penalty machine in the past. He always gives a lot of penalties away. But he's really impressed me in the 2 playoff games, and I've got to treat him with plenty of respect. But overall, Hein, it seems that we're pretty much aligned as far as the handicap goes. If we were going to get further involved, we'd probably still be looking at the Crusaders minus.
Brent, the one thing I would say is at 15.5, I'd be involved definitely. But at the moment, I'd probably sit out this one for the start and look at in running, especially if the Lions can get an early try. I'd definitely be piling in again. So that would be my strategy at this stage. If you've missed if it's gone to about 18.5, maybe be cautious about it, and perhaps even if it's an Elton penalty early, it might come down a bit. But again, on that point, I think the Lions are going to stick to what they know. They're not going to do a lot of kicking at posts. I think they're going to go for the corners, go for some tries. So yeah, that's the other thing to consider if you're thinking about points or something like that. I think they're going to stick to that tactic of kicking rather than going for balls.
Right, well, talking of points, it's very difficult 2 days before the game because the Lions aren't out. We can only assume what they might be. But what we're going to do on Saturday morning as well is hook up, probably at around about 9:10, using the same YouTube live. Hook up, perhaps bring in the likes of a Henrik Swart if he's available. He loves his points lines. Maybe even get the Oracle on. I was suggesting to the Oracle maybe at halftime if the Lions are 30 points behind at that stage, he may well be looking to pop himself off. He certainly looks from his tweets as though he's been on some pretty strong stuff on Twitter. But just on the Oracle quickly, I mean, he's gone for the Lions. He's gone for the bigger margins in the last couple of weeks. They've started slowly. He must have absolutely thought he was gone. But in each case, they've got up by narrow margins. And certainly in the case of the Hagiari, he survived the late scare. So he's flying high. He's made some money. And I guess he just thinks he's going to throw some more bucks at the Lions.
Yes, I saw. I think a few weeks ago he decided to change tactic and try something new, which is always nice, and it does give you the extra reward. But I must say, I try and justify a bet on it being easy, and 2-1 you obviously expect to sweat a bit more. Even money, if you had a good even money bet, it should be pretty comfortable. Then you've gotten a good bet, and having to rely on that last kick from Elton Yankees there at the death last week must have been a bit nerve-wracking on a 5-unit play. So. Yes, I
think the kick hit the post as well, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. It was like you have to wait to see whether the flags go up or not.
And you mentioned Yankees. He's going to be a key man because as well as he performs when the Lions are on top as a pack at Ellis Park, he has sometimes looked shaky overseas. And if the Crusaders do at least get parity in the pack, or perhaps slightly on top of the Lions, you'd expect that Yankees may struggle.
Yes, again, I've mentioned it a lot. I think people... If I do have any readers, they'll know that Elton Yankees isn't my favorite. I think he's crucial for the Lions, though. I mean, that goes without saying. And he almost gets that pep in his step when his forwards are going forward. And I think that's often been the problem at the box, is he doesn't get that go forward ball, and he doesn't get given a freelance to do what he wants. But again, last week, going for that little chip kick inside his own 22 and up by 22 points or 20 points, 10 minutes to go. I mean, that's poor game management. He's a senior player. For me, he's the guy calling the shots, but he just hasn't quite got the game to be able to do that at the highest level, and especially, as you say, if he's not really enjoying front football. So I think, especially in the matchup there, Richie Mo'unga, to me, I've put in bold words there saying, comparing him to Dan Carter, I think he could be the next big thing. I think he's magic. He's got the all-round game. He's got a little kicking game, bit of tactical, great off both feet, good pace. So, I mean, in a one-on-one battle there, as you say, unless the Lions can really get the Crusaders onto the back foot, if it's the same kind of ball, Mo'unga will run circles around him, I think.
Right, well, give me your best bet on the final then, Hein.
As I say, I'll probably look for something in play, but to have a runner beforehand, I'd go for the Crusaders by 21 to 30 points. That's my play at 3-1. I saw I could get it at the moment, and I think you'd probably be in the running for most of the game to be in a shot of winning that one.
Yes, whether it goes wild early or starts off slow. I'm going to be looking at probably unders on the Lions points, hoping for 18.5, perhaps 19.5 if I'm fortunate there. Anything else on the weekend, Matt, perhaps outside of the rugby that catches your eye?
Well, I'll definitely be watching some cricket. I enjoy having a in play there on some batsman runs, and obviously the big one is the test happening between India and England. So there, I usually just stick to the cream rising to the top, and I got some money on Virat Kohli today, and I backed him to be the series leading run scorer. So I just keep riding that horse to the finish line. So it'll be Joe Root to look out for some runs, and Virat Kohli.
Yeah, he's certainly a quality player. Well, I haven't had a good look at the rest of the weekend yet, but as I said earlier, we're going to try a couple of things. We'll do a bit of a pre-match preview, probably 5 minutes, just going through some of the points lines. And then we'll also have a look maybe at the halftime quotes if there's a couple of people around to chat with me about that one. So something a bit different for the final this weekend. And then looking ahead, we've got the PGA Championship coming up next week. I'll see if I can't find a golf expert or so to interview on that one. But Hein, thanks very much for joining us on this first live show. Just to mention, we will be able to get more than one guest at a time in future as well, which could make for some quite interesting debate if we do get the likes of the Oracle on the show, which I know we will. But thanks very much for joining us, and sort of see you on the Good for the Game forum.
No problem, Brent. Just in closing, I'd just like to say, you can understand that there are some Lions fans out there. I think they've got a good pack of forwards. Everyone's saying they've got nothing to lose, which is great. They haven't got the pressure. They've got Brent back, which is good. Some guys on form, which is great. And I think the good thing about the last few weeks is that they know they can't start slow. So those are the things in their favor. But unfortunately, I just wrote something down this evening before, and then I thought the Lions are nearly as good as they were last year. To me, that's a fact. The Crusaders, I don't think they're any less lethal. And this time around, they're playing at home. So I mean, I just can't see the Lions upsetting the apple cart in this one. So back that 15.5 or whatever you can get with confidence.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly hoping it gets up to around the 18.5, 19.5 mark before kickoff. Hi, thanks very much. Thanks to those who tuned in. You will be able to watch the show in entirety afterwards. It's one of the nice things about these broadcasts as well. But this was a bit of an experiment. We welcome any feedback. I see there's a comment section on the side. We probably didn't have enough viewers for our first time to really have many comments. But it is quite an interactive medium, and we can, on the live shows, probably communicate with the people watching as well. But thanks very much. We'll be back on Saturday sometime with the next show. Thanks, Hein. Thanks to those who tuned in.